Hey everybody, it's Ron, and I want to tell you a story about business and how that story changed everything. The roulette table glowed before it did anything else. A small electronic board mounted at one end, tracking the last several numbers and colors, red and black, lit up in a neat little row for anyone walking by to study. Marcus had never played roulette in his life, but he'd been standing at this one for 10 minutes now, at a casino floor, let's say somewhere off a highway exit in Oklahoma. He was watching that board light up black, then black again, then black a third time. His girlfriend, Priya, had played a handful of times before and knew just enough to sound confident. Neither one of them noticed the low hum of slot machines behind them or the cocktail waitresses circling with a tray, because both of them were watching that little board like it was about to tell them something important. "It hasn't landed on red in a while," Marcus said, nodding at the row of black squares glowing in front of them. "Feels like it's due, right? Maybe we throw $20 on red." Priya nodded slowly, like the logic checked out, because on the surface it did. It felt obvious. It felt safe. It felt, more than anything, correct. But it also had absolutely nothing to do with that little wheel and that little ball, and what they were going to do next, which became obvious when the little ball landed that time on the number 11, which is black, not red. So what makes a string of the same outcome feel like pressure building towards a change? Why does a machine with zero memory convince perfectly reasonable people that it owes them something? And how did one wheel in one room spinning black 26 straight times on August 18th, 1913, become the most famous proof that this feeling is always completely wrong? From Business Basics, I'm Ron Trucks, and this is Business History, the daily podcast where we explain the stories that changed business forever. Every date on the calendar has a story where business reshaped the world. Today, August 18th, that story takes us to 1913. Is it ever going to land on red? To start us off, let's make sure that you understand something. A roulette wheel has no memory. Each spin is a fully independent event, exactly like flipping a coin, carrying the exact same odds every single time, no matter what happened on the spin before it. That fact matters more than almost anything else in this story, because on the evening of August 18th, 1913, at the Casino de Monte Carlo in Monaco, one table was about to prove just how badly people misunderstand that fact. The early spins that evening drew no attention at all. Black landed once, then again, then a third time. The kind of ordinary run nobody bothers tracking in the first few minutes of any game. Gamblers came and went from the table the way they always did, placing modest bets, barely glancing at the small printed scorecards a few of them kept track on. They marked each outcome in pencil as the croupier called it out. Somewhere around the 15th spin, the pattern started registering. Black had come up so many times in a row that people started chatting about it. Others walking past the table slowed down to look, then stopped entirely, then pulled up a chair. What had been background noise became the only thing anyone in that corner of the casino was watching. This is the exact moment worth naming plainly, because it actually has a name. Psychologists call it the gambler's fallacy. That's the completely false belief that an independent, random event somehow owes a correction because of what happened right before it. It feels like sound reasoning in the moment. It has never once been true. By the time the 15th spin came up black again, money had already started shifting hard onto red. Spins 16 through 26 kept landing on black, one after another, and each one should have told the room something important, that whatever they believed about the odds shifting was flatly wrong. Instead, the crowd's certainty only grew. More people crowded around the table, more money piled onto red. The logic in the room wasn't cooling off, it was compounding. Since a streak this long felt less like chance and more like pressure building towards an inevitable snap. The bet sizes climbed right along with the certainty. Gamblers who'd started with modest wagers began doubling, then tripling their stakes as black kept landing and red kept failing to arrive. They were reasoning that a bigger bet on an overdue outcome only made sense. A second cognitive error was compounding the first one by this point, working alongside it rather than replacing it. Some of the gamblers pushing more money onto the table by the 20th or the 21st spin weren't only betting on probability anymore. They were also unable to walk away from what they had already lost, chasing a recovery instead of reevaluating the bet fresh on its own terms. One belief said the wheel owed them a correction. The other belief said they had already put in too much to stop now. Together, they kept the money flowing in exactly one direction. The 27th spin finally landed red. By then, the casino had collected millions of francs, not through any manipulation of the wheel or the game, but simply by letting two well-understood, well-documented reasoning errors run their course against players who felt the entire time like they were being perfectly rational. It's important to understand that none of the things we're talking about here are confined to a casino floor. And that's the part worth sitting with if you've ever made a business decision under pressure. An investor watching a stock decline for several straight sessions, concluding it's due for a bounce, is running the exact same reasoning as those gamblers, treating an independent market movement as though it owes a correction because of what came before it. The math hasn't changed. The feeling of inevitability has just as little basis in reality as it did at that roulette table in 1913. The second bias shows up constantly in business too, often without anyone recognizing it by name. A team that keeps funding a failing product or a struggling strategy specifically because of how much has already been spent on it isn't making a forward-looking decision anymore. It's protecting a past one. These deal with what's called sunk cost, the inability to separate what something has already cost from what it's actually worth continuing. Just so you know, we dig into it more in our business dictionary definition on our website. The sharper insight, and the one worth carrying out of this episode, is that those two errors rarely show up alone. Most people don't experience one clean bias at a time. A decision maker convinced a turnaround is statistically due, while simultaneously feeling too invested to walk away, is running both errors at one time, each one quietly reinforcing the other's grip. Recognizing that combination while it's happening, not after the money's gone, is the actual skill worth building. The casino at Monte Carlo never needed to cheat anyone that night. It only needed the room to keep believing the next spin would be different from the last one. That belief was the entire business model, and it still is, wherever the same two feelings show up in a boardroom instead of a casino. I'm Ron Trucks, and this is Business History, the podcast that finds the turning points behind the headlines. To hear more stories like this, follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen. And if you're enjoying the stories, please don't forget to subscribe and leave a quick review. It helps more people find the story behind the business. And if you want to actually understand business better without the fluff, the buzzwords, or the MBA language, start by visiting businessdailypodcast.com.